friends and sane persons, and welcome to another episode of Wednesday Whimsy. My name is Kyle, and Wednesday Whimsy is a short show that I do every Wednesday evening where I talk about a board game, a top 10 list, or some other board game related topic or something else, whatever happens to be on my mind. Well, the word of the week is word games. I recently, as you know, went to Gen Con, and I tried a fantastic new word game there, a couple actually, and I really have been thinking about them lately. In fact, there's a couple that might even have made my list if I'd played them more. But the whole concept of word games is really an interesting thing for me. Now, they don't always work with people who are speaking English as a second language, although surprisingly they often do, especially if the person knows English well, and sometimes that makes it even more enjoyable. But I guess I just thought I would talk about 10 really great word games that I really enjoy, that I think about a lot, and that I've been, some of them that I've been playing recently, and figured we'd take it from there. So here we go. Now, I do want to say that when I talk about word games, I specifically do not mean letter games, right? I'm not talking about games where you're trying to form words by spelling things out. Instead, I'm talking about games where, you're trying either to guess the word or help people guess the word or figure out what a word might be, but not necessarily by spelling it. So that's just a small distinction here. I might talk about letter games another time. Anyway, with that out of the way, I guess let's get going with my number 10. Let me find the banners here. All right, my number 10 is a game. It's definitely the one I've played the least on this list, but it's just such an interesting concept. And a lot of these games kind of share some common DNA, because obviously what you're trying to do is guess a word. So there's only so many different ways you can do that. And like I said, there's a couple that I would have put on the list, but I haven't played them enough. But this is one that I just found really interesting back when I discovered it. And this game is called Trap Words. Is it working here? Yeah, here we go. We're going to go in. Come on. There we go. Trap words. So trap words is kind of like your stereotypical word game, except what you're trying to do is, you've got a series of words that are, well, traps. And so when people say the trap words, you on the other team, you're going to identify that as a problem. So, people are trying to get through this dungeon. There's a time limit. And you are going to kind of create, it's kind of like another game called Banned Words, where you're going to make a list of the words people can't say. And it's just got a nice dungeon-y theme. It's from CGE. It's their second most popular word game, I'm sure. Maybe even third, because Letter Jam's from them too, isn't it? Anyway, it's an interesting game. It is a higher player count than some of the others. You need 4 to 8 players. And so it gets played a little bit less. But I do enjoy it when it comes out, and it's interesting to play sort of from both sides, both as the guesser and as the team trying to figure out, what people are going to be guessing, and try and make it a problem for them. Anyway, that is my number 10, Trap Words. Let's go on now to my number 9. Oops, my number 9 is not Trap Words. My number 9 is the other game from CGE, and I have it lower, and that's probably just because I have played it. I think it's just been around so long that it's kind of, I guess, everywhere and not cool anymore. Sorry. This game is called Codenames, and Codenames is a fantastic game with the right people. Some people truly do not enjoy this game, but I do enjoy it, and let me see if we can't get in here. What you're doing in Codenames is you have a secret list of words that you're trying to get your team to guess, and your opponent has a different set of words, and you're trying to give one-word clues. And so I will look at this lineup here, and I will say, cold 6. And that means I'm telling my team that they have to guess 6 words that are related in some way with the word cold. And once they guess them, then we'll put the tokens out. First team to accomplish its goal wins. It's a very simple design, but really interesting, and I love that you've just got almost endless variety. There are so many different versions of code words, code names. There are, there's code names Disney, there's code names Simpsons, there's code names Harry Potter. There's also code names Pictures, which is images, obviously, and then Duet, which is going to be a two-player cooperative mode. And that's kind of, I guess, where this game falters for me just a bit, is that it does not work well, unless you have the Duet version. It's not going to be a great cooperative game, or certainly not a solo game. So the Duet is fine. I enjoy that. But the sort of two-player version obviously doesn't work. You're going to need a larger group. And that's, sometimes hard to get, especially for a game that's as thinky as this. The rest of the words on my list are a little bit more fun and wild. This game is really very thinky as you're trying to kind of, come up with a word. And there may be moments of significant silence as you're just staring at this display, trying to find one way to connect 3 or 4 words, because you don't want to do it one word at a time. That ends up being a waste. So it can be a really cerebral game and very tense and a lot of kind of sitting around. And so it's not really the raucous party game that some of the other word games I'm going to talk about are, but it's still a lot of fun, and it's become a classic at this point. It's just a really successful, great game. My number 9, Codenames. Let's go on to my number 8. Alrighty, well, coming back from number 8, where we had a very cerebral game, I'm going to go to the very opposite. This game is a very silly game. It's actually it's such a silly little experience. The game is called When I Dream. So the game is kind of dressed up in a lot of pageantry here, but ultimately what you have is a bed which holds the cards, and then you're going to have one player is going to wear this sleeping mask, and everyone else is going to be going around the table saying one-word clues. And you're going to have a word that's on top of the bed here, and one team, everyone has a secret identity. You're either going to be on the team of the good fairies or the evil fairies, or there's some other chaos goblin that's in there too. And the fairies, the good fairies team, are going to try and help the dreamer to guess their words. And then so you're going to use a one-word clue to try and help people to guess it. The other team, the evil fairies, want them to get it wrong. And so you're going to try and give a bad clue. But you also don't want to be too obvious, because once the dreamer figures out who's good and who's bad, they're not going to listen to you anymore if you've been obvious. So, we have here the sea. I might, I might try and get the person to say something like lake. I might give a clue that says salt, right? Because maybe they'll think of Salt Lake. And so I'm trying to get people in the other pile. And then there's the chaos character, who I guess is the Sandman. I don't remember. But they're trying to get the piles as even as possible. And so it's a really interesting game of, a word game with a small bit of social deduction in there. Very fast. The rules are a little looser than I'd like, but I do enjoy it a lot. And it's always just a lot of fun when this one comes out. That is my number 8, When I Dream. Let's go on to my number 7. Number 7 is kind of medium for the list, and that's intentional because the game is called Medium. So this is a weird game, honestly. It's from Greater Than Games. I remember I played it at Gen Con. I guess it must have been 2019, because that's when it came out. In this game, everyone's sort of trying to make a mind meld with the players to their left and right. And so ultimately you'll have a card that's out there, and you're trying to find the one word, the medium, that connects it. So we have here, train and blue, and I might try and find the one, I might try find something that connects it, and I want my my other player to guess correctly as well. And it's there's a lot of kind of looking at it. It's almost like the mind in that case, in that you're looking at the other player, trying to get them to come up with the same thing as you, and you're just going to say the word and you want it to be the same, right? You're trying to read each other's mind, and it's a weird game, kind of like the other word games. Am I not showing this? Looks like I'm not. Kind of like the other word games. where you're trying to come up with a word, but you're trying to do it with one person and have it, rather than try and connect two words that are already out there to some third concept. You're trying to look someone in the eyes and pick the same thing that they're going to think about the words that are on the table. It's a weird game. The scoring's kind of wonky. It's more of a just play around twice and see how you feel, rather than try and scoring it. I don't love the scoring mechanism. There's sort of some point values if you get it on your first try or second try, and some artifacts that kind of make the game a little more convoluted than it needs to be. But just the sort of experience of staring somebody in the eyes, and then when you connect, when you get that magical moment where your ESP is synced up and you guess the same word for these connections, it's really very satisfying. I quite enjoy my number 7, Medium. Let's go on to my number 6. Hey, where's number 6? Here's number 6. All right, I've talked so far about lots of word games. This is definitely the weirdest one, I think, on my list. This is, I believe, a Russian game. And I remember when I first heard about it, I almost didn't really realize what it was. But the game is called First Contact. Let me see if I can't find it here. First Contact. Number 6, First Contact. And it is this weird game where one person is like an alien and is trying to help other people kind of figure out their language. And so you're going to draw symbols, and you're trying to help people to sort of guess the words in your language. So you've got all these kind of abstract concepts. And it's almost more of a linguistic game than a word game, but it's still very much a word game. So you're kind of giving symbols and assigning them to these different things so that the other players can kind of figure out what you're trying to go for. It's almost like there's another word game. Is it called First Contact? No, this is First Contact. Message from the Stars. Kind of feels like it inspired this game. But, I mean, they're both different enough. And actually, I've only looked at Message from the Stars. I haven't played it yet. But First Contact, I remember when it came back, you've got, I think it's something like the Egyptians trying to learn about the aliens who built them the pyramid or something. And it's an interesting deductive game, and you're trying to make word associations the same as kind of the other ones. It's such an odd game that it's really worth trying sometime. But you really have to bear in mind that you need the right group of people, because it's such an odd kind of puzzly type of a deduction game that it's more about even the deduction than really the word associations you're making. But I do enjoy it, and especially with the right group, it really hits like nothing else. And it makes me want to try Message from the Stars, because I think they share a lot of the same alien DNA. Anyway, that is First Contact. Let's go on to number 5. All right, where First Contact was bizarrely thinky, the next game is pure poetry. Yep, I'm going to be here for the next little while, folks. Now, that game is Poetry for Neanderthals. So Poetry for Neanderthals is a team versus team word game where, let me see if I can find it here, where each team is trying to get their team members to guess words, but the sort of hook in Poetry for Neanderthals is that you can only use, we've got lots of foreign versions, one-word clues. And it looks like they're all in a different language. Well, you can get it in English too. Anyway, I won't keep looking for it. But the sort of hook of the game is, again, I'm looking at this card. It's a one-word clue, and I have to give it to my team using any one-syllable clues. That's kind of the key. So if the word is bicycle, I might say thing, you, ride, to, tire, chain, and then I keep going until somebody guesses the word, and then I throw it down, and you're doing this on a timer. If ever I make an illegal clue, so something that is either on the card, part of the word, or not one syllable, then somebody's going to hit me with this no-no stick, which is this inflatable club, which is sort of the most noticeable and also the most problematic piece of the game because you have to inflate it. It's hard to inflate, hard to disinflate, and it'll wear out eventually. But the sort of core experience where you're trying to give these one-syllable clues, short, simple words, is just very enjoyable. So that is my number 5, Poetry for Neanderthals. Time now for number... All right, number 4 probably should have been number 1 just because of the word that's in its title, but this is a fantastic game that when it came out, it was everywhere. This game is, of course, Just One. Just One, just a delightful game where you're working kind of as a team. Well, I guess it is cooperative, but what you're trying to do is give one-word clues to help people guess a word. So, I will, if it's my turn to guess, I'm going to pick a number 1 through 5. I don't see this card, and everyone else is going to see the word, and they are going to write down a one-word clue, and then everybody is going to look at their clues, except me, obviously, and any clues that match are going to knock out. So if you pick a clue that is too obvious, well, someone else might guess it, and then I will end up with no clues, or very few clues. But you also know that everyone knows that, so maybe you'll think, well, I'm going to put down the obvious one, and hope that nobody else does. And so ultimately, you're sort of playing this kind of double think that's going on here, and you're trying to give a clue that is a good clue that will enable me to guess what we have here, but also isn't so obvious that everyone else gives it, and I end up getting very few clues. Or, it can be really funny when I end up with just a couple random words and no idea what I'm supposed to guess. You play a few times around, and there's a way to keep score, but it's mostly the experience and not really the scoring. It's a great game that really almost always hits for me. Let's go on to number 3. Oh, well, I've already revealed it. I guess I clicked the wrong button and put it up there first. The next game I have, the one that I've really played a lot of is Insider, but it was remade essentially as Werewords if you want more kind of secret roles or whatever. The game is basically a 20-question social deduction game. And so what you're going to do is one person will be the master and is going to be answering yes or no questions about a concept. And one person is going to be the insider and will know what the word is. So if it's body, I'm the insider. I know that it's body. And so my goal is to make sure that we steer the conversation so that it will help people guess the word. But I don't want to be so obvious because once we guess the word within the timer, then a round of a somewhat complicated series of votes is going to occur. And if people can identify me as the insider, well, then I lose and everybody else wins. And if I'm successful, well, then I win. So successful at hiding, sorry. So everybody loses if the clue isn't guessed, but there will be sort of some secret identities and teams going on with some social deduction as we try and figure out who the insider is. It's just very light. It's a small box, this Oink Games version. It's literally that big. And the Werewords version is bigger and a little bit more complicated, but essentially the same core concept. It is all about guessing a word and trying to keep your identity secret. It's a really fun game that works well with a lot of different groups, especially about 4 or 5 people, maybe 6. Perfect size for the game, I think, and something that rarely goes poorly, unless, of course, people either hate word games or hate fun. Hate social deduction, sorry. Anyway, that is number 3, Insider or Werewords. Excuse the technical difficulties here. I am going to tell you now about my number 2 game. My number 2 game is the newest one on the list and the one that made me think of this list here. It's the one that I discovered at Gen Con just a few weeks ago and is a fantastically fun game that I really haven't been able to get out of my head and have played a lot even since then. And that game is Landmarks. So Landmarks is kind of like Codenames, in that you're trying to give people these these clue words to help them guess some sort of a connection, but you've got this spatial positioning going on. So, I have this, if it's my turn, I have this card, and I'm looking at it, and I'm trying to help you navigate to certain treasures and to the exit. And there's also a whole bunch of bad stuff that's on this island, and so I'm trying to give you clues that help you get where I want to go and help you avoid where I don't want you to go. So, for example, we have heavy and lift, and if I wanted you to go right here, well, I might choose something that goes with heavy and lift, like, I don't know, barbell. Because we already have weight out here. When I said barbell, okay, well, then people will think, okay, what's something you lift? And it's heavy, so they'll think, okay, well, maybe it goes here. Whereas if I only wanted it to be lift, I might say elevator, right? Because that doesn't go with, well, it goes with heavy, but people I'm thinking won't associate it with heavy. Or if I were thinking of heavy, maybe I say Dostoevsky. I don't know, Tolstoy. Maybe, but that might be a bad clue because people are going to think that it goes somewhere else. So you're trying to sort of guide people with these one-word clues and help them get certain spots on the map. Not a perfect game, but a really good one where there's a lot of, it's fun on both sides, and it can be very frustrating on both sides as you kind of set traps for yourself, and you're like, well, I can't go there ever again because all these words are now synonyms, and I don't know how I'm going to differentiate them. And when a great game happens, it is memorable, right? When you give that perfect clue and somebody finally sees where you were coming from, it can be exhilarating. I do wish there's sort of this weird treasure collection mechanism where you're supposed to get a number of treasures, but you still win even if you don't get them. And I kind of wish that were a little bit more streamlined, maybe remove some of that. But it's a great game. It works well with 2 players, and it works well with more. I really like Landmarks. And now it's time for the number 1 best word game of all time. And if you know me and know what I like, this game is just pure fun. This is a game that I have had to compel people to play with me. People look at this, they hear its name, they see what the components look like, and they think, I'm not really interested in this. But let me tell you, once people get through that initial kind of push, this game is just fantastic. And that game is so clever. So clever. What you have going on here is each person is going to be given a set of 4 cards and one of these clover wheel things. You're going to put them down there, and then you are just going to be writing one-word clues that connect the things on each side. So, for example, these don't look all right. I don't know all of these words. Some of them look like they might not be in English. But anyway, so I would be trying to write 4 words that connect, a word that connects these 2, a word that connects these 2, a word that connects these 2, and these 2. Then, once everyone's ready, you're first going to take a picture of it on your phone because you will forget. And then you're going to take all the cards off your clover, and you're going to add 1, or if you want to play on challenge mode, 2 extra to it. You're going to shuffle them up, and you're going to hand them to people, and people's goal is to try and put them back in exactly the same order and orientation. If they do, you get points. Points don't really matter. You want to get as many as possible, though. If you don't get it in one, you can give people a second guess. You take off the bad ones, and they get to try again. And then you laugh and have a great time. This game is just so fun. And it's, there is a way to score it, but it doesn't really matter. It's just a game about just laughing and figuring out, and then also thinking, well, I know this person, and I know he would not connect those 2 things. I know he doesn't know about this obscure reference that I'm thinking of, so I'm not going to mention it. But then I do know, and so I thought about that. And it's an interesting puzzle. It's a hit every time it's played. I know it looks stupid. I know it has a terrible name, but it is an absolute rocking hit. And I just think it's the best word game that there is. So there are other great word games in addition to these, but that is 10 that I really enjoy, and that's kind of my list for today. So I hope you've enjoyed talking about 10 great word games with me. If there are some that I missed, go ahead and put them in comments if you'd like. Maybe I'll see them later. And I'll come back and I'll talk about spelling games sometimes, and I'll talk about other things. who knows? Next week, I don't know what I'm doing yet, but I will soon, and I hope to see you there. But until then, I'm going to wish you safe travels, courage when you need it, and I will hope to see you back again next time on another episode of Wednesday Whimsy. Bye-bye.